All right, Bulls and Bears, how's everybody doing? We're back with another dose, BX4 News. Let's go ahead and get right into it. The price increases have taken effect. Are you being zapped by the higher prices? Well, I went out and bought a few things before the prices were to be hiked on the 25th, a couple brief things, and then we'll get into the news. I ordered a Rubbermaid shed, one of those sheds where you put in the yard. It's like a 5 foot by 3 foot shed, $260. I think it would have been a lot more if I'd have waited. So I went ahead and got that so I can put my little garden stuff in there. Shovels, hose, garden tools, all that stuff. A couple other things I got off of some online retailers. And tried to just buy some things that I had on my list. Kind of you put things in your cart, but you don't buy them right away. You know what I'm talking about for online shopping. So not too much. I spent less than $500 on stuff here. So some people did go much bigger as far as biting the bullet on their purchases. We're going to get into that here today. People buying cars before they anticipate prices to rise. We've got another report out. We're going to talk about consumer sentiment dropped again. I think there's 3 different consumer sentiment reports that we look at, and that's why it seems like I'm talking about it every 2 weeks or 3 weeks, because there's a few different ones and they come out each month, right? So like 2 or 3 a week we're going to talk about here. Another one dropped a pretty big plunge because of everything happening. We've got high prices and now more threats of inflation, and it's going to get even crazier, folks. So let's go ahead and get into the news, folks. All right, and I want to give you my summary now at the end of the video instead of talking about it at the beginning. That way we can get into the news, because sometimes I'll sit here and talk for 5 minutes before actually getting into the current news. I know most of you come here for the current news, and then for those that are not understanding why all this is happening, we'll save that towards the end of the video with kind of a nutshell, wrap it up, big picture, tie it all together type of thing here. That's going to be my new strategy here on this channel. We'll start right here, folks. We got more warnings of empty shelves coming. Product shortages and empty shelves loom with falling shipments from China. I've been seeing this type of story in a lot of different news outlets. And I told you here, I don't think there's going to be massive shortages. It could happen. I'm not saying not to prepare. I've got a whole shelf, 2 shelves full of food, canned food. Some of it's like 2 or 3 years old that I need to start using because I've been kind of prepping for some pretty hard times. I should have a lot more food. I don't prep as much as some people, but I would say be ready, but don't go crazy. Don't go out and, like the toilet paper thing, when the health crisis came out, a bunch of people went out and loaded up on toilet paper. Remember that? Then some people tried to return the toilet paper because there wasn't the shortage that they were afraid of. So don't be afraid. Just be cautious. That's kind of the key words here I want to use. What's happening though, businesses have been canceling orders from China with the 145% tariffs. And people are saying that this is not going to last, that they're going to drop this. Maybe, maybe not. What if they don't? Right? What if this does last? Right? It's kind of like the wars we see. Like some people said, the wars that are happening right now are just going to last, maybe a few months. It'll be a bombing campaign. It'll be over. And you go 1 year, then you go 2 years. Sometimes these things just drag on. And I think that's the fear in the economy with people's budgets, right? People barely scraping by. But people are still going to sporting events, right? We're going to talk about how people are spending their money. The NBA playoffs are happening right now. We're going to talk about that here in just a bit. And some people say, we didn't come here to hear about sports. Folks, if you're not in tune with how people are spending money on entertainment, whether it's sports, whether it's Netflix, travel, vacations, all that entertainment type of stuff, then you need to really start paying attention, right? Because it's very fascinating to me how people, even though debt levels are at record levels right now, how people are still choosing to spend their money. And I'm not criticizing people that do this, right? I spend money on entertainment, right? I used to go out and, before everybody was streaming songs, I used to go out and buy tons of CDs, like before I was married and stuff like that. My wife would kill me if I wasted that money now. But back when I could just spend whatever I want, I used to spend so much money on CDs. I had a collection of like over 600 CDs at one point. Right? This is before you could just download, stream. I'm talking about like the 90s. And I've sold all those CDs since then, eBay. But the point is, I've spent a lot of money on entertainment myself. I'm not criticizing people that do that. I can understand the reason. There's a void I think that people need to fill. Even people that are living paycheck to paycheck, a lot of them are the ones at the basketball game spending a lot of money here. Let's just jump into that real quick here. And let's just talk about the Lakers. That's a California team. It's a team everybody's familiar with. Even if you're not a big fan, everybody's heard of the Lakers. Even if you're a casual fan, you've heard of the Lakers. So many iconic players, and now LeBron James. Now they got this guy named Luka Doncic from Dallas, who's really good. And big demand for the tickets, folks. So according to Google AI, these tickets are going between $240 and $322, which is not bad considering it's the Lakers. The average Lakers playoff ticket price, so between $240 and $322. Some people say that's pretty low because it's the Lakers, but think about this. You're just sitting there for a few hours and you're paying that kind of money, whereas a movie, you could sit there for a couple hours and maybe spend, what, is it $25 now? I haven't been to a movie in so long. I don't know, but people are spending money, folks, and this is one of the big things. It's entertainment. Why do people spend so much money on sports, entertainment, things they don't need? Well, here's my example. I spend money on monthly music streaming service because you can basically get every song that's ever put out almost through most of these streaming services, and it's pretty nice to have the convenience of not having to shift through CDs or not having to search online. You just pretty much make your playlist, hit the road, hit play on that playlist, and whatever songs you put on there are going to be automatically played. So pretty cool feature. I spend money on that. Just an example of what I spend as far as entertainment goes. I don't do a lot of sports games, but a lot of people do. In fact, these tickets are pretty, these stadiums, these arenas are pretty filled here. And the one that the Lakers play in, what's their capacity there? That arena, that particular arena in LA, which I think the Clippers play there as well, is 20,000 people. So they're making some money selling out those arenas every night during these playoff times. But people are still spending money, and I've said it here before to kind of give you the background on this. As long as people have credit, they're going to spend money. Right now we're seeing banks allowing people to go further and further and further into debt. Even though delinquencies are rising, defaults are rising, it's not enough for the banks to pull back yet on the credit. So people are still going to spend, and you're still going to see people out spending money in these entertainment, in these sports arenas, all this stuff. Travel, vacations, restaurants, hotels, amusement parks, right? All that stuff that's based around the entertainment type of spending. What you might call leisure hospitality if you want to talk about official terms of this type of spending. All right, people, though, moving on. American consumers serve up a bleak outlook of the U.S. economy. What's going on with that? University of Michigan's closely watched sentiment index fell to its lowest levels ever. We talked about one a few days ago. It was the lowest since the health crisis. Well, this is the lowest level ever. So obviously, it's not just me making this stuff up. People are freaked out. Yes, people are still at basketball games. People are still shopping online. You see Amazon trucks wherever you go. I mean, I drive around and a 5-10 minute trip, and I see probably an average of 8 to 10 Amazon trucks. That's what it seems like. I take my kid to school and back. Maybe it's 14 miles each way. And Amazon truck every couple miles, right? People are still shopping. People are still buying. The debt levels have not slowed people down much. A little bit when you look at the increase of the debt. Debt is still increasing, but the increases have slowed down. Kind of like inflation. I would compare that to inflation. Inflation still rising, or cost levels still rising. Things are still getting more expensive, but the level of how quickly things are going up is slowing, right? So you still see inflation, but it's just slowing. Inflation is what it is, right? So this, I think is a indicator of the big picture here of what's happening amongst the consumers. Are people going to not spend? Of course not. People are going to spend money just so they can feel good, because when you can't afford the big things in life that a lot of people want, when you can't afford a house, when you can't afford the nicer car, and the things that a lot of people like to have, when you can't afford to have a family, a lot of people will fill that void with things like entertainment, with partying, clubbing, going to concerts, all these things, right? A huge, huge part of the economy. I mean, I've had people criticize me for talking about this stuff, folks. When you look at a chart of money that's spent in the economy, entertainment, leisure, hospitality, that's a big portion of people's households. I mean, housing is the biggest with rents and the mortgage payments, but it's a big part of people's financial picture. Right, but let me know in this video and comments down here. Let me know what your vice is. Maybe not vice, because then you're talking about substance abuse and stuff. What's your entertainment thing that you still spend money on today. Mine is music streaming. Don't really go to the movies much. I do have Netflix, right? So some movies, some apps. So many people have Netflix, right? But what's your biggest one? What do you think? Please let me know down in the comments. I think the streaming stuff is probably my biggest entertainment expense. I don't really travel that much, right? I wish I did, but with kids in school and stuff like that, plus I've got a challenging child situation where kind of a special needs type of thing where it's not easy for me to travel. Otherwise, I probably would travel more. But let me know down in the comments what your entertainment spending looks like in your household. And I probably should start doing live streams because I like to read your comments, and it would be nice to kind of read in real time what you're saying and go back and forth, talking stuff like that. So maybe we'll do the live stream thing. It's just tough with my schedule right now. Basically working 2 jobs right now. I mean, if you count YouTube as a job, which it's not enough to live off of. If you count that as a job, I'm working 3 jobs. But basically, I'm doing a regular full-time job, some other side hustle type of things, plus property management. So being a landlord, that takes up a lot of time. And I've got a handyman that I have do this stuff now because I don't have time to do it. So it's something I've thought about not doing for a while because it is tying up a lot of my time. But anyways, let's get into more news here, folks. You didn't come here for me to talk about this stuff. Or maybe you did. I mean, let me know down in the comments. More Americans are financing groceries with buy now, pay later loans, and more are paying those bills late, right? So what I say, it just keeps getting worse, right? It just keeps getting worse. It's almost like it's never going to end. We hear all these numbers and we see these stories that things got worse and more people are paying late. Defaults are increasing, delinquency is increasing, but we never see an absolute implosion. We never see the breaking point. We never see the bubbles go bust. I say never. Of course, we've seen it in the past. But this time just seems like it's a never-ending bubble inflationary cycle is what it seems like. It seems like there's no correction on the horizon at all. That's what it seems like, right? And when you look at the price levels, it seems like they can keep this propped up forever. It seems like an endless cycle of people taking on debt, debt forgiveness, loan forgiveness to allow people to keep from going underwater financially, so to speak. But some things are changing now with these loans, right? There's no more loan forgiveness. The repayment plans have been basically, they're going to be stripped away for these student loans. Students are freaking out, or people that are not even students, people that still have the debt and they've been out of school for sometimes 10, 20, 30 years, still have the debt. They're freaking out, folks, with this repayment situation and what's happening with that. And something we've touched on here a bit lately is how things are being reversed. We're reversing the student loan forgiveness. That's being reversed. The current administration is restarting collections on defaulted student loans. Remember, they had froze that for years. Student loans, how this current administration impacts millions of borrowers. Nearly 2 million people stuck in student loan forgiveness and repayment limbo. Get some updates here. So what's happening is they're going to resume collecting these. They're going to report these to the collection agencies. People are going to see and are already seeing, right now, they're already seeing their credit scores tank by 50 to 100 points, even more, because these are now being reported, right? So no more easy street for a lot of these people living in, not just living in debt, but living with debt, but not having to actually pay the debt. So the rent forgiveness, the mortgage forbearance that we've saw over the past few years, those are in the rear view mirror. And now's the time, I think, when things are really going to accelerate. Now, they could re-implement a lot of these things. They could reapply these things, restart these things, and keep kicking this can down the road for longer. Right? They've already done it for years. Who's to say they can't switch it on and do it again if there's a crisis or a broad economic downturn, right? They might just come in with all these new programs, rescue programs, what we call them. It is possible. But let me know if you know someone, or maybe you're someone that has student loan debt, and how is it affecting you, and do you agree with this? There's people out there that say they should just delete all this debt, just delete it. And then what's going to happen? Well, people will go out and take out more loans because they don't have to pay this over here. So now they're going to take out more loans over there. So it would be inflationary, right? The more debt you forgive, the more inflation you see, because then people just go out and borrow more money and fill up that debt bucket, so to speak. right? It's all about the monthly payment. When you take away one monthly payment, let's say you paid off somebody's car for them, for example, pay off their car. So let's say $450 a month, no more car payment. What are they going to do? Are they going to save more money because of that? Put money away? No, people are afraid to save money because, well, a lot of people can't, but because things are just getting more expensive. You might as well, people are so used to inflation, I think, as they're just saying, buy it now. Kind of like what we talked about at the beginning. I bought a shed for the backyard because I knew it was going to be pricier down the road. And people are looking at that now for everything with just inflation. Buy it now because it's going to be more expensive later. Finance it now because it's going to be more expensive later. But if you forgive loan over here, people are just going to take more over there. Oh, that's $400 now that I can take on debt over here and buy a different car. So now I'm going to buy a second car because somebody paid off my first car. You see what I'm saying? People are pushing themselves to the limit monthly, even beyond that, because some people are not even paying off their monthly debt obligations. They're not making their minimum payments. The number of people making their minimum payments continues to climb here. Let's get into this here next, though. And I wanted to just kind of show you some of the headlines that are out there and why people are afraid, right? One, people are afraid just because they're looking at their own finances and their budgets, household budgets, what's coming in versus what's going out. But headlines like this also, I think, are having an impact here. Look at this. The worst is yet to come. The tariffs could mean higher prices and empty shelves within weeks. This just came out today, like 8 hours ago. So more of these empty shelves. Get ready. Mass carnage, mass starvation type of thing. The worst is yet to come. The tariffs could mean higher prices, empty shelves. Same headline there. A storm of uncertainty. CEOs warn the worst is yet to come. So we have this talking point here. The worst is yet to come, despite deceptively calm earnings season. Of course, earnings season doesn't mean the average person is doing good. Here it is, another one here, just a few weeks ago. The worst is yet to come for stocks. Stock market got crushed. Well, it's actually recovered over the past week. We actually had a positive in the stock market last week. So is that a dead cat bounce? Are we still on the way to lower prices, right? Nobody knows. They can keep this market propped up to infinity with basically funny money at the click of a mouse. I think most of you should know how that works by now. All right, but a couple other things I wanted to get into before we wrap this up here, people. And I wanted to bring this one up, folks, here. I'm not making these terms up. These are terms that are being put out there. The Atlantic, the coming economic nightmare. The tariffs could cause stagflation is what they're talking about. So, I mean, if you look at the way things are being reported, people are not just worried about themselves today. They're worried about what's going to happen tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. And you have to ask, are these headlines right? Is there an economic nightmare coming? Is there empty shelves around the corner within weeks because of cancellations, right? We already see Amazon hiking prices. Also, shipments are being canceled from China for many things here. Amazon sellers are hiking prices on hundreds of goods as tariffs bite. And higher costs are always passed along, aren't they? So you look at higher retail rents, higher commercial property rents, they pass that along to their consumer because that's money they have to make up to stay in business. And I was thinking about this the other day. All the money lending, all the loans for residential and commercial real estate lead to higher prices because the more money you can borrow, the more you can bid up when you're trying to buy something, the more you can pay for the item. Well, the higher the rent is, let's say your local food shop, your local restaurant, the higher they have to pay the rent, the more they pay for rent, the more they're going to charge for food. And that's more overhead and that's more you pay as a customer. So this all goes back to the banks. And here's kind of the wrap up I want to leave you with here. It all goes back to the source and the system of money, right? When there's no limit on the amount of money that can be created, you can have banks loan out 100 times, 1,000, 10,000 times more money than they actually have because there's no limits. You can just keep loaning it out, kind of like the government borrowing money. There's no limits. 30 trillion could be just the beginning. It could be 100 trillion in a few years because there's no limit because the money's not backed by anything. It's not backed by a hard asset. For example, gold like we had up until 1971. And therefore, you're going to see inflation keep going. And that's why I say buy the stock market dips because they're just going to keep on pumping and pumping and pumping. And they're not going to stop until this until the source of this changes. And there's been people saying for years we're going to go back to a different system and the gold standard's coming back, folks. I don't see the gold standard coming back in the near term. I see it coming back eventually, but I think things are going to get a lot worse. And I'm hoping not 10 years away. I'm hoping we get this collapse done. And I've always said here, I think I'd rather get it done more quickly instead of the slow grind, kick the can down the road, keep the bubble inflated, and forgiveness programs, rescue programs to infinity. I would say let it implode. Start with something better, something with sound money, folks. That's what we need. So I'm investing accordingly. I'm investing for more inflation, and we see investments that have taken off like crazy, right? We talk about it here on this channel. So make money from the carnage, folks, and keep an eye on all these things. Try to make money on the way up, and then be ready for a big correction at some point. What's the straw that broke the camel's back? Nobody knows. If you know, let us know down in the comments. I'll be reading this one, and I hope to see you down there anyways. Everybody keep stacking as always. Make sure you're subscribed. Keep this channel alive. Talk to everybody very soon. Bye now. Peace.